Alright, legends, welcome back to the show. A day late, I have been out adulting. I've been helping a friend move house today. And yes, didn't get around to shooting this video quite as quick as I would have hoped to have done. But I'm here now, and we're getting into another little chat about Masters of Universe Revelation Part 2. This episode is the Gutter Rat. And I have been, since the start of this show, been a little bit arrogant in my way of looking at it, thinking, okay, this is going exactly the way I was thinking it was going to go. There's no spoilers really for the old timers, the guys that knew the original series, the story that they're pulling from. Obviously it's Tila ascending towards becoming the sorceress of Castle Grayskull. We all knew that, no spoilers, but I did also say that there's a few things there that are going to throw a few surprises my way, even watching this one. And gotta say, in this episode, went away I wasn't expecting it to go, and that is through Evelyn. And I did kind of think that at some point she was going to be the one to turn on Skeletor. We do get that in this episode. And spoilers once more, if you haven't seen the episodes, check them out before you watch these videos or listen to these podcasts. Yes, this one here is very much on the character building side of this series. Of course, we get to see the ramifications of everything that happened after Adam got killed earlier in the series. Of course, he's returned. We've seen his reunited. We've seen him been reunited with his father, and them sort of having their moment. And the father just been thankful to have him back. At the beginning of the episode, we get a lot of him rewarding Tila and Andra for bringing Adam back, and of course Cringer as well. And Tila, apologises for walking out on the royal family, and the king is like, you know what, you had every right to turn your back on us. There were so many secrets held back from you and me both. And we start to smooth over some of those relational breakups in the earlier episodes of this series. And Andra gets rewarded by being made a lieutenant in the Royal Guard. And of course then the Queen turns up, and overjoyed at seeing her son alive. But there is a moment between her and King Randor. Even with Adam been here with the two of them, she kind of gives him the cold shoulder, and it's revealed that after the death of Adam, the relationship between the King and Queen quickly started to dissolve, as Marlena says to Adam in the episode, losing a kid is losing the light from their lives. And they were just haunting the palace, just shadows of their former selves. And Randor was blaming her for keeping the secret back from him, and she resented him for that at the beginning, but quickly just began to resent him in general. So she was even thinking about leaving him and perhaps even returning to Earth. And yes, so we cut back to Castle Grayskull. Skeletor's still on a search for how Adam called down the power without the use of the power sword, and he's trying to work this out. And Evelyn comes in, and he shows her the star chamber. Essentially, she gets to see the whole of creation, Eternia, the entire universe, all the power in there. And what she gets from this experience is that it's completely empty. There's no rhyme or reason for anything that's going on. It's just sheer power. There's no greater plan behind it all. And Skeletor even says to her, like, he pulls her out of the vision, and he's like, you need to be really careful when you look into the horrors of the abyss. It can drive you insane, more or less. And she asks Skeletor, what's the end game here, essentially. And he's talking about the celestial apex. I hope I got that term right. I'm going to look like a right idiot if I got that wrong. Celestial apex, we'll just go with that for this episode. I'm pretty sure I'm on the money with that term. But it's basically going to be the planets all aligning for the first time since creation, and Eternia is going to find itself once more at the centre of the universe. So him holding the power of the universe in his hands the way it is now, when the planets align, he's going to be more powerful than he ever could be at this point. He's just going to have every ounce of power in the universe, and Evelyn is like, what are you going to do with it once you get it? And of course, Skeletor being Skeletor is just like, I'm going to kill He-Man with it. And she is like, are you insane? You're going to be the strongest being in all creation at this point, and you can't see past your petty little squabbles. It's just He-Man, He-Man, He-Man. You could be so much more with this power. And he just laughs at her. She says you could quite easily with a thought kill the king. Prince Adam would come crawling to you to help, beg you to save his mother. You could do anything you want to do at this point. And Skeletor just laughs at her. You're an ambitious little gutter rat, and that gives her a real dig where she lives at. And this is after she has a conversation with Man-at-Arms in the dungeon, and he pretty much just looks at her and kind of brushes her off. You might be the new sorceress, but you're acting big coming down here and bullying the Sarlaccs, and after your boyfriend bullies you, everybody in the dungeon can hear the abusive relationship that she's in with Skeletor. And there's a lot of dark themes in this series, and it's, in all honesty, this series is not for kids. This is a grown-up series, but with the algorithm and the internet and everything that's happening, particularly with YouTube at the minute, I'm marking these down as made for kids content, because it is in that grey area right now. It is a more adult version of Masters of the Universe, but it's based on that old kids show. This series is for the people that were children when He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was out in the early 80s. We've all grown up now. The show has grown up along with us in this version of it. It's fairly, there's no fairly about it. It is a dark show for a Masters of the Universe show. I'm absolutely loving it. But the story of Evelyn is an insanely interesting one to me. She is quickly becoming, for me, the favourite character in this series. And she is definitely... You get her full backstory, essentially, in this episode. We get a flashback. She's talking with Beastman, and he's telling her, you need to get away from Skeletor. Eventually he's going to kill you. I know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. But Evelyn, at that point, really feels that she owes Skeletor her life. And we get the flashback of her on her 5th birthday. Her parents were starving, and they were actually going to resort to cannibalism and eat her on her 5th birthday because they were just so hungry. And she hides in the sewers for 20 years, becomes a thief, and you see her stealing from people and getting hunted down by these two guys. And it almost seems like in this point she's just discovered her magical power. She's cornered. These guys are coming after her, and she puts the two hands together, and you see the magic starting to form in there, and it quickly peters out, and she's rescued by Skeletor from these two guys. He takes her and trains her up, enhances her magic, teaches her how to use it. She becomes her lieutenant, blah blah blah. History unfolds to the present day. But it's been one abusive relationship from day one, physically, mentally, you name it. Skeletor has done it to her, and she has accepted it as just, it is what it is. He saved me, made me what I am, It's just it's your basic story of an abusive relationship between a man and a woman in this episode. And after the talk with Man at Arms, he's like, the sorceress, you'll never be the sorceress that the sorceress was. The sorceress he was in love with, the sorceress that gave up her daughter to become the sorceress, to be who she was. And she used the power and gave it away. And the champion that she has, and He-Man, like, the champions only have the power at her will. It's Skeletor at this point. Evelyn, if you're indeed the new sorceress, Skeletor is basically your puppet at this point. He's no stronger than the sorceress will allow him to be. So between that chat and the chat with Beastman and him telling her, look, Beastman is obviously in love with Evelyn. Like, there's no beating around the bush. It doesn't really go into that in this series, but it's obvious. He's committed himself to Evelyn. You've seen it within the first 5 episodes. You're seeing it again in this episode, and he's definitely, he's worried about her. And she goes to Skeletor. She turns on him, and she uses her feminine wiles, let's say, to, like, you've been back for a while now, Skeletor. We haven't indulged in our other favourite pastime. Arguing with you is all fun. I enjoy it. Blah blah. Lulling them into a false sense of security, and really, really turning on the charms. And she wants to be, let's just say, intimate with him. And she says, sleeping with a god could probably kill me. You're going to have to power down if you want to do this. And it works. He sends the power back here, let the power return, and he changes back from the ultimate version of Skeletor back into his normal self, thinking that he's going to get a bit. And she grabs the power sword from him, and she's like, you're never going to kill He-Man. You can't see past your petty little differences and your little quest for power. And even if you did kill He-Man, what would you do after he's gone? And he's just your reason for existing. Like, he's more important to you than I am, and this silly little sword, the way she puts it, is more important than me. And she just decides there and then, and this is the bit that caught me out. I was expecting her to turn. We've seen a bit of a turn back in Evelyn's life in the first 5 episodes. Like, you definitely did see the good kind of coming out on her, and especially with the episode of her and Orko together. You definitely seen the more tender side of Evelyn, and you did kind of see maybe she could go the way of good in this series. And since Skeletor's been back, it's been obvious that he's been pulling her strings the whole time. So at this point, I was kind of fully expecting her to walk out and return the sword to Adam. Then Adam comes in the form of He-Man and takes on Skeletor. And I'm really glad this episode did catch me out. I do enjoy it when this happens. I've said it in multiple reviews in the series, not just the He-Man series as we're going through the original one, but Transformers as well. This is leading into the next episodes where He-Man and Skeletor are going to have to team up together to fight Evelyn. She decides that, I'm doing these reviews episode by episode. I'm not skipping ahead really to work out what's happening. I did kind of go on to the following episode. I haven't seen the last episode yet, but it does set it up at the end of this episode. She decides not to return the power sword, but why should I leave myself bound to Castle Grayskull when I can be my own champion? And she raises the sword by the power of Grayskull, pulls the power down, calls it down, transforms. Skeletor freaks out, and he's like, what the heck am I going to do here? Opens a portal disappears from Castle Grayskull, she appears in the sky in front of all Eternia and presents herself as the ultimate power in the galaxy. And her first thing that she does with this power is, like, and it is the opening, like, what she could possibly become. This is only the opening shot of what she's going to do with this power, and it's basically the darkest thing that she can do at this point. Like, as far as she's concerned, the entire galaxy is raw power. There's no, in her eyes, there's no rhyme or reason for it. There's no greater control of it. There's nobody in charge of the whole thing. It's just chaos, and to chaos we will return, is the way she puts it. And to demonstrate this, she's like, I'm going to free all you people from spirituality, and she clicks her fingers, showing everybody in Eternia a vision of Preternia, basically heaven in the universe of Masters of the Universe, and destroys it completely with all the heroes and everybody that we've seen going there. We get a shot of the little memorial they made for Orko up there, and Merman once more tenting the forest and everything. He's sprouting out flowers in memory of Orko, and everything's getting destroyed in like a nuclear blast, and everybody's taken out. So at the end of the episode, it's battle stations. What the heck are we going to do? We see the command centre, essentially, with the King and Queen Adams there, along with Tila, and they're guessing if she's taken the power, she's killed Skeletor. So what are we going to do? The Queen is going to, fly to different areas of Eternia and try and bring help back, but there's no time for that. So Tila finally pipes up after, also in this episode, she works it out for herself that the sorceress was her mother. Nobody had to tell her. They tried to tell her multiple times in earlier episodes, and anybody that tried to do it got cut off by somebody else. But at this point, it's just completely obvious, even to her, and she's like, obviously, she was my mother. I have to be the new sorceress. And the only way we're going to stop Evelyn is with another sorceress. So she's committing herself at this point. She's going to have to do this. And, everybody else is like, we need all the help we can get. Tila's like, I could send a psychic message out to the whole of Eternia and get help that way. And Adam's like, you know what? We're going to need all the help we can get from anybody. And at this point, Skeletor turns up under an armed guard of the Royal Guard. He's turned himself in, and he's like, what are you looking at, you royal boob? That's a tasty little reference in this episode as well. It was one of Skeletor's classic lines in the original series, was to call somebody a blithering boob. And Evelyn actually calls Skeletor that at one point earlier in the episode, and again he calls Adam a royal boob at the end of the episode. What are you waiting on? Invite me in. We cut the episode there. It is actually great, and I am loving it, to the point where my reviews are almost as long as the actual episode, and you're probably better off just watching that instead of watching me or listening to the podcast. Go and check out the series. It is great, and it's really shaping up to be a worthy follow-up to the original one. I'm looking forward to doing a final thoughts video on this series once I get through the episodes themselves, because I have got a lot of thoughts about this series in whole, but we're just concentrating on the bulk of the episodes at this point. Guys, I'll talk to you in the next one.